For 6 years, the door was closed. Now, it's cracked open, but not for everyone. In the summer of 2026, after years of silence, lawsuits, and a memoir that shook the monarchy to its foundations, Prince Harry finally sat down with his father again. Weeks later, reports emerged that he and Meghan were packing up their life in California for good, moving their children back to British soil. But here's the question nobody in the palace wants to answer out loud. If Charles is ready to forgive his youngest son, where does that leave William? Because while the king was opening his arms, his heir was on a polo field, in front of the cameras, nowhere near the reunion. This is the story of a family trying to heal in public, and the brother who may never forgive. To understand why a single tea party at a royal residence became global news, you have to understand what the British monarchy actually is underneath the crowns and carriages. It's a family business, and like most family businesses, its biggest crises have always come from inside the house. For centuries, royal feuds were hidden behind palace walls, managed by discreet aides and carefully worded statements. But the Harry and William story broke that mold. This wasn't a rift managed quietly over decades, it played out on television, in a Netflix docuseries, and in the pages of a best-selling memoir that Harry titled, pointedly, Spare. A word that describes exactly how he says he always felt inside his own family, the backup heir, the understudy, the brother born to serve, the brother born to rule. By 2026, King Charles was 77 years old and still undergoing treatment for the cancer he was diagnosed with back in February 2024. Time, suddenly, felt different for a man sitting on the throne. And when time starts running short, families tend to ask themselves a hard question: is being right worth being alone? That question is exactly what brought Prince Harry back through the palace gates this year. But as we'll see, forgiveness from a father doesn't automatically come with forgiveness from a brother. And in this family, that gap might be the most important story of all. To really feel the weight of this reunion, we need to rewind. Prince Harry and Prince William were once inseparable. As boys, they walked side by side behind their mother's coffin in 1997, two children thrust into unimaginable grief in front of the entire world. As young men, they served as each other's best man on their wedding days. Alongside their wives, Kate and Meghan, they were branded by the press as the Fab Four, the glamorous new face of a modernizing monarchy. Then, in January 2020, everything changed. Harry and Meghan announced, without fully consulting the Queen or Charles beforehand, that they intended to step back as senior working royals. The move was dubbed Megxit by the tabloids, and it detonated inside the family. The late Queen Elizabeth II and Charles were reportedly blindsided by the announcement. Within weeks, the couple had relocated first to Canada, then settled permanently in Montecito, California. What followed was not a quiet separation. In 2021, Harry and Meghan sat down with Oprah Winfrey for an interview that raised explosive allegations about the family's treatment of Meghan, and about conversations regarding the skin color of their unborn son. In 2022, Netflix released a 6-part docuseries simply titled Harry and Meghan, in which the couple detailed, in their own words, the pressures that pushed them out. And in January 2023, Harry's memoir Spare hit shelves, containing some of the most personal and damaging royal disclosures in modern history, including an account of a physical altercation with William. For Prince William, these years were widely reported to have hardened something in him. Royal commentators have consistently described his view of his brother's choices, particularly the memoir, as a betrayal he considers close to unforgivable. Where Charles, as a father, seemed to search for ways back to his son, William, as a brother, seemed to build the wall higher. Then came February 2024. King Charles announced publicly that he had been diagnosed with a form of cancer. Harry flew to the UK almost immediately, visiting his father at Clarence House. It was a brief, quiet meeting, but symbolically enormous. For the first time in years, a health crisis had done what years of family diplomacy could not. It got Harry back in the same room as his father. But a meeting is not a resolution. In the months that followed, reports suggested Charles had largely stopped taking Harry's calls, frustrated by an ongoing legal battle over Harry's UK security arrangements that had been downgraded after he stepped back from royal duties, and which Harry was fighting in court to have restored. In a raw and emotional BBC interview after losing that legal appeal, Harry said something that royal watchers still quote today, that reconciliation would be up to his family, and that he simply didn't know how much longer his father had. That interview, according to some royal insiders, was seen inside the palace as a mistake, an overly public airing of a private wound. But outside the palace, it did something else. It humanized Harry to a public that had grown weary of the family's endless drama. A son, afraid of losing his father, saying so out loud. By late 2025 and into 2026, the ice had begun to visibly thaw. In September, Harry and Charles met privately for tea at Clarence House, their first real conversation in over a year. It lasted nearly an hour. William did not attend. That absence would become a pattern. Now let's walk through exactly how 2026 unfolded, because this year is where the story accelerated dramatically. Spring 2026, the quiet campaign. Behind palace walls, sources told the Daily Mail that King Charles had privately tasked a new aide, his Deputy Private Secretary Theo Rycroft, with a delicate mission, bringing order back to a fractured family. Rycroft, a former diplomat known for his calm, careful handling of sensitive situations, had earned a reputation inside the palace as someone who could navigate exactly this kind of minefield. According to insiders, Charles's greatest personal wish, beyond any policy or public duty, was to see his sons reconciled before it was too late. Around the same time, royal watchers noted a shift in Harry's own tone. Where the previous years had been defined by lawsuits and explosive revelations, 2026 saw something different, a quieter, more conciliatory Harry, reportedly influenced by new advisors urging a different approach. Insiders suggested that Charles's ongoing cancer treatment had sharpened Harry's sense that time for repair was not infinite. July 2026, the Highgrove reunion. Then came the moment that changed everything. In mid-July, Prince Harry, Meghan, and their two children, Archie and Lilibet, travelled to the UK and met privately with King Charles and Queen Camilla at Highgrove House, the King's private residence in Gloucestershire. For Charles, it was the first time in 4 years he had laid eyes on Meghan and on his California-raised grandchildren. Palace insiders and royal correspondents described the meeting as emotional. Both the palace and the Sussexes reportedly agreed to keep details deliberately private, an effort, sources said, to protect the fragile progress being made rather than turn it into another media spectacle. But notice who wasn't there. Prince William and Princess Catherine were absent from the reunion entirely. On that very same day, photographs captured William and Kate at the Royal Charity Polo Cup in Windsor, sharing public displays of affection in front of cameras, a striking visual contrast that royal commentators didn't miss. Some experts framed William's absence as strategic rather than hostile, arguing that any true institutional reconciliation, involving the future king, would need to happen on William's own terms, and not be rushed. Others were more blunt, noting that William had been visibly angry since the publication of Spare, and had shown little appetite for closing that particular door. As one royal historian summarized it to NBC News weeks later, those close to William say he still radiates anger toward his brother. Late July 2026, the Palace Room controversy. Just as the story seemed to be settling into something hopeful, a new controversy erupted, and it revealed just how fragile the peace really was. Harry had planned a visit to the UK, primarily centered around a milestone event, marking 1 year until Birmingham hosts the 2027 Invictus Games. According to Newsweek, Harry had accepted an offer from King Charles to stay at Buckingham Palace during the trip, only to be informed, shortly afterward, that the offer had been withdrawn following consultation with the king. The reversal triggered what one outlet memorably called a right royal mess. Reports suggested palace aides were nervous, worried that hosting Harry inside Buckingham Palace itself might be read as a symbolic endorsement that went further than intended, or that Harry might use the moment to publicly suggest the king secretly sympathized with his broader criticisms of the press and the institution. Others feared optics that were, in the words of one commentator, almost theatrical. Comparisons were even drawn to Evita Peron addressing crowds from a palace balcony. In the end, Meghan and the children skipped the London leg of that particular trip entirely, and had not, at the time, decided whether they'd join for the rest. Late summer 2026, the bombshell, a move back to Britain. Then, in the final weeks of August 2026, came the development that stunned royal watchers on both sides of the Atlantic. According to the BBC, citing earlier reporting from The Telegraph and The Sun, Prince Harry and Meghan were planning to relocate the entire family back to the United Kingdom. Their children, Archie, now 7, and Lilibet, 5, had reportedly been enrolled to begin at a British school that September. The family was said to be eyeing a private residence outside London, while keeping their homes in Montecito and Portugal. King Charles, according to sources, was informed of the decision on a Sunday, before the news broke publicly. Prince William and Princess Catherine were reportedly told as well. Crucially, multiple reports emphasized one detail again and again: this was not a return to royal duty. Harry and Meghan had no plans to resume official responsibilities, no plans to move into a royal residence, and no expectation of reclaiming senior working royal status. This was described as a personal and private move, not an institutional one. The timing raised obvious questions. The relocation followed not long after Netflix quietly downgraded its overall production deal with the couple to a more limited first-look arrangement, and after the streamer exited as a business partner in Meghan's lifestyle brand. Some insiders speculated the couple's commercial fortunes in America had cooled, and that reconnecting with the royal family carried real value, both emotional and, some suggested, financial, as the entertainment landscape grew more competitive. Whatever the full mix of motivations, one thing was clear: after 6 years across the Atlantic, the Sussex family's centre of gravity was shifting back toward Britain. The security question. Underlying nearly every step of this story is one persistent, unresolved issue: security. Harry lost a legal battle in 2024 over the British government's decision to downgrade his taxpayer-funded protection when visiting the UK. A downgrade triggered by his own decision to step back from royal duties in the first place. He has argued publicly that without proper protection, bringing his wife and children into the country isn't just uncomfortable, it's unsafe. Some reports in 2026 suggested a review by the UK Home Office might finally shift in Harry's favour, though as of the family's relocation announcement, the full picture of what security they'd actually receive remained unclear. The British public's reaction to all of this has been anything but unified, and that split says a lot about where the monarchy stands in 2026. For one camp, the Highgrove reunion and the reported move home represent something genuinely moving: an aging king, fighting cancer, finally getting to hug his grandchildren and mend fences with his son before it's too late. Commentators sympathetic to this view have framed it as a deeply human story buried inside a very public institution. Stripped of politics, it's simply a father who doesn't want to run out of time. For another camp, skepticism runs deep. Critics point to the timing, coming just after the cooling of major entertainment deals, and ask whether this reconciliation is driven by genuine emotion, financial necessity, or some blend of both. Some commentators have been openly harsh, suggesting that if the goal was ever to discourage further public airing of royal grievances, welcoming Harry back this warmly, without any apology on record, sent exactly the wrong signal. And then there's the Prince William question, which has arguably generated the most media obsession of all. Royal commentators have pointed to his consistent absence from these reunions, not just at Highgrove, but throughout, as loud in its silence. Some royal experts interviewed by outlets like Fox News and Ola have framed his stance diplomatically, describing him as focused on institutional stability rather than personal reconciliation. Others have been far more direct, describing William's feelings toward his brother, particularly after the memoir Spare, as something bordering on unforgivable. Meanwhile, tabloids have run with dueling narratives about the Sussex's UK move itself, some framing it as Meghan gracefully returning to show what Britain lost, others suggesting a more complicated picture involving family tension over the decision. It's worth being cautious here. Royal reporting is a notoriously murky ecosystem, full of anonymous insiders and competing agendas, and not every claim carries equal weight. What's verifiable, through outlets like the BBC, NBC, and CBS? Is the basic sequence of events: the reunion happened, the palace room offer was withdrawn, and the family is relocating. The emotional interpretation layered on top of those facts is where things get murkier, and where audiences should apply healthy skepticism. So why does any of this matter beyond tabloid drama? Because it touches something structurally important about how the modern monarchy actually works. Royal historians point out that the institution has always drawn a sharp distinction between family reconciliation and constitutional reconciliation. King Charles, as a father, is free to rebuild a personal relationship with his son on his own terms. But Prince Harry returning to any kind of official role is an entirely different, far more complicated matter. One that touches on precedent set by the late Queen Elizabeth II herself, who determined the terms of the Sussexes' departure back in 2020. Multiple royal correspondents have noted that this policy line has held firm even amid the recent thaw. Personal warmth does not equal institutional reinstatement. There's also the Camilla factor, which experts say is easy to overlook but genuinely central. Queen Camilla has been described by royal commentators as a fixed, non-negotiable part of Charles's life, meaning any lasting peace between Harry and his father realistically depends on Harry also making peace with his stepmother, despite his complicated feelings about her marriage to Charles following her past relationship with him during his marriage to Princess Diana. Harry himself has described his relationship with Camilla as pleasant, polite, but clearly not warm. Then there's the William dimension, which experts frame less as anger and more as risk management. William is the future king. Every public gesture he makes, or doesn't make, gets read as a signal about how the monarchy itself will handle dissent and disclosure going forward. If William were seen embracing Harry too quickly, some experts argue, it could look like the institution is rewarding a memoir that publicly criticized it. That, more than any personal grudge alone, may explain why William has kept his distance even as his father has stepped forward. Finally, there's the health dimension underlying everything. Charles's cancer diagnosis has fundamentally reshaped the calculus for the entire family. Royal watchers have repeatedly noted that a genuine health crisis has a way of collapsing old grudges faster than any diplomatic effort could, but it doesn't erase them. It just changes what feels worth fighting over. As of late August 2026, here's where things actually stand. Prince Harry and Meghan are reportedly finalizing their move back to the United Kingdom, with their children set to begin school there in September, meaning the physical relocation itself was expected within a matter of weeks of the news breaking. They intend to live privately, outside London, without royal trappings, while keeping their homes in California and Portugal as a kind of transatlantic safety net. King Charles, according to sources, welcomes the chance to spend more time with his son and grandchildren in a personal, private capacity. His health remains a factor. He continues to undergo regular cancer treatment, and that reality appears to be driving much of his urgency to keep the door open. Prince William, meanwhile, remains the clearest holdout. There is no confirmed meeting between the brothers on the horizon, and multiple royal experts maintain that any true brother-to-brother reconciliation is, for now, unlikely. The relationship that once defined the Fab era of the monarchy remains, by most accounts, still broken. And officially, nothing has changed about Harry and Meghan's royal status. No return to working royal duties. No royal residence. No formal reinstatement. What's happening is personal, not constitutional. A family trying to find its way back to each other, while the institution around them watches carefully, cautiously, and, for now, keeps its official distance. So where does that leave us? A father racing against illness to rebuild a bond with his youngest son. A son moving his family across an ocean, back toward the country, and the family he once said he could never safely return to. And an heir to the throne, watching from a polo field, seemingly unmoved, unwilling, or simply unready to follow his father's lead. The story of King Charles and Prince Harry in 2026 isn't really a fairy tale reunion. It's something messier and more human than that, two people trying to salvage what's left of a relationship under the shadow of a diagnosis, while the deeper wound between two brothers remains stubbornly, painfully open. Charles may have found a way to welcome Harry home. Whether William ever does, that's a chapter of this story that hasn't been written yet. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel keep covering stories like this with care and accuracy, instead of chasing rumors. Subscribe if you want to stay updated as this story develops, because with Harry and Meghan's move now underway, this is far from over. And I want to hear from you. Do you think William will ever fully reconcile with Harry, or has too much already been said? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.